Good evening and welcome to the Football Weekly Show, where we have a special edition this evening. We're going to talk all things men in football, and with me today to discuss that hot topic we have four gentlemen who are in the know. Let me introduce you, starting with the gentleman on my right hand side. We've got Sonny Pike, ex-footballer. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Good to have you on the show. We've got a man who's going to be very familiar with a lot of people out there, Troy Townsend.
Apparently, yeah. Hi, how you doing, bro?
From Kick It Out, and we'll learn more about you shortly. Also, we've got Taf Rahman, coach from Tottenham Hotspur.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Good stuff. And we've also got Samir Swanee, director of Motivate. That's right?
Hello, yeah.
Yeah, you good?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Okay, right, guys. The idea of today's show is to learn as much about, I guess, your journeys in grassroots football all the way through to the professional level. So what better place to start, I guess, than Sonny himself. I'll let you kind of tell us a bit about your journey and where it all started.
Generally from Enfield, North London, and just playing general for Enfield Town Football Club. Playing for Enfield Town local teams. Ended up getting scouted by a lot of teams. Got well known for being asked to play for Ajax, and went from there. Really, the ball kept on rolling from there, and got quite well known, and quite a lot of things happened.
Okay, so how long ago was that then?
Well, I'm 32 now, and about 20 years ago we're talking. I'm talking up to 10 till 14 was the time when I was really well known. Okay. As such.
Right, and how long were you out in Holland for?
I was only out there for a few weeks. I went to go there, and then they asked me to come back. Mm-hmm. But at that point, I think I was only 13 years old, so I wasn't really looking to live there, to be honest with you.
Okay, so but to be scouted by Ajax back then, that's tough. Obviously, you're a coach yourself. That's got to be some going, right?
Yeah, no. Ajax is a club that's hugely respected around the world for developing talent. And if you look at the history of what they produce, or what's so fascinating about Ajax is that conveyor belt never stops. So they must have something in their DNA, how they do things to produce such good players. And funny enough, when I was talking to Sonny before we was walking up, I remember him, like, we're the same age, so I'm 32 as well. And I started quite late. I think I started going to professional football about academy football about 11, and I remember him doing the flick over the crossbar and things like that. And that's that blonde curly hair. I remember that very clearly. So I think Ajax is unbelievable. Right. Unbelievable.
Well, we've got you on that topic. Just give people a bit of a flavour as to what your background is and how you come to get involved in football.
Pretty much the same as Sonny, really. Playing grassroots football in around northwest London. Grew up in central London, Camden area. A lot of cage football, a lot of 1v1, 2v2 games, and played for my district, which led to playing for, getting scouted by QPR and then moving on to Arsenal. I attended a programme that was similar to what I think Ajax do over there. Was like the first ever education and football at the same time, and the ball was rolling from there. So I continued with the Arsenal youth setup. And things didn't materialise due to injuries and life and everything else. But I'm here coaching now.
Excellent.
I'm still involved in the game.
And now you've been involved. You started coaching how long ago, and how did you come to get involved with Tottenham?
I started coaching when I was around 21, 22. So as I was still playing semi-professional football, I looked at various different pathways and started looking at the coaching side of it. How I started off Tottenham was quite interesting, because when I was 10 years old, the gentleman who scouted me, that was my first scout, and he was working for Luton. He was only 19 years old, Dean Rastrick. So Luton back then was a grassroots, not grassroots, but a lower league club in the League Two, Division 3 back then. And he scouted me, and I was like, wow, I'm going to be playing at a professional club. But yeah, ultimately I didn't sign for them, and when I started coaching, I found that Dean was working over there, and then we reconnected. He was like, "Oh, you got away from me now. I got you back." So yeah, that's pretty much how I got into the Tottenham setup.
And you've been there since. So we'll learn more about where you're at now and how you've got to that point. But Troy, obviously a club that's close to your heart, or was close to our heart. I know it might be a bit touchy.
Wow.
You know what? We'll talk about that in a bit as well. But,
He's got me on the spot straight away. That's it.
so tell us a bit about what you're doing. Like I said, many people will know you do some brilliant work. Your face is known in the football scene, but just there might be the odd person that doesn't. What you're doing in the football?
Well, I work for Kick It Out, obviously. Title's Education and Development Manager, although I don't think that means much. It's such a wider scope than that. I have the pleasure and luxury of going into academies and talking to the young players just about life skills, stuff away from the playing side of the game. And that's not down to me, that's down to obviously all their academy coaches, etc. We talk about the aspects of discrimination, we talk about aspects of their music that they listen to, banter, just stuff that will help them along the way. You know, the game's a great game to play in, and it has so many plaudits, but you know, if you tip off the iceberg, you could be out of it within a shot and you'd have only no one to blame but yourself. So we try and educate the lads you know, on that process. You know, there's so many stories in the game now, unfortunately, about young players going wayward, etc. And along with the Premier League, you know, I'm privileged enough to be able to go into there and kind of talk to them about my experiences in the game and the pitfalls that there are out there. And it was just with 16 to 18 year olds to start with the Football League, but luckily now we've got a full programme at Kick It Out called Equality Inspires that runs right through from under 9s all the way through to 21s. We speak with the parents as well, you know, parents of an elite player, which these players that are in academies are elite players. So we talk to them about how they can help their sons along the way and not just be the doting, you know, mum or the father that's living his dream through his son, and the staff as well, because the staff have to understand the messages and how they portray and how they talk with young players as well, and what they're doing to support them. So, you know, I feel really privileged to be able to walk into academies and be able to hold the kind of room, what we call the change room of young players nowadays, and help them in their development as well as what they've been, you know, what's been done within their playing side of it.
Good stuff, good stuff. Right, we've also got Sam here. Now, Sam, obviously we've just heard from Troy about the work that he's doing with professional clubs and the academies. Yourself, you're doing more similar type of work, but you're working at more grassroots, should I say, within the communities. Tell people a bit about what your experiences of football have been.
Yeah, so yeah, thank you. Started in 2000 and it's a while ago now, 2004, and I entered the industry as somebody who'd sort of flirted with grassroots. You know, one of those millions of kids trials here and there, but it just never happened for a number of reasons. Usually because I wasn't as focused as I probably should have been. After university, I decided to do a bit of travelling, and that's where I got the hook for football nut anyway. And I didn't really want to go into, you know, your archetypal, what all my friends were doing, trading, stocks and shit, you know, lawyers, finance, all of that. Couldn't think of anything worse, to be honest. And the whole finding yourself, and I just went around just watching football outside of England, starting off in Europe, working my way through to Asia, and then back again. And I came back and I thought, you know what, I need to do something about this. It's all great wanting to do it, but you know, life's for the living. So I just volunteered, just went up to my local football club from West London, Ealing, Brentford. Happened to be the one. They were the old school, Troy will know this, football in the community, jumpers for goalposts, you know, no community development centres or any of the other snazzy terms. It was literally a bag of footballs and going out on the States. And that was a culture shock for me as well, because what football that I knew was playing the side of Ealing that I was from was quite integrated, you know, multicultural society, you know, bowling green, football pitches, all of that. I went to Southall, they said brown face, send him to Southall, you know, and that was a shock. You know, we had like 80 kids turn up at the first session. It was a home office back scheme called Positive Futures, and police got called out the first session. I was like, what the hell am I doing here? Do you know what I mean? Yeah. But I came back because I like a challenge, and I spoke to the young people, I got to know them, and I began to realise that football was so much more than I actually realised, and it means so much to different people in so many ways. And I've expanded my remit beyond that. So I quickly worked my way up through the organisation, getting my coaching badges, going beyond football into other sports as well, and getting qualified in those sports and using those as other routes to offer young people opportunities, exit pathwaying them. You know, for players who dropped out of what was the centre of excellence, we offer them, you know, training opportunities to get involved in the community side, because, you know, why lose them to the game completely?
Definitely.
And very quickly what I realised again was that the skill set that I was using was something that I began to think, do you know what, can't I just do this myself? So, but I knew I had to learn more skills. So I worked my way up through, I got to the Kicks, into the Kicks program, which is another community-backed program with the Premier League that I'm sure some of the guys will know very well about. And I became one of the development managers at quite a young age. By about 26, I was leading a program in West London for like writing the funding bids, connecting in a multi, agency perspective, working with the NHS, working with Safer Neighbourhoods teams, and using it to tackle things like gang affiliation, using weapons, but all of those things that young people are targeted as, for traditionally having the ones that are, unfortunately, saying that they have this, that, and the other. We were saying, no, they're not. That's 1% of society, and that 1% we're targeting to give them opportunity. But for those kids who just want an opportunity to play, and when we say play, we don't mean just turn up and kick a football about. We would run them as if they're small academies. You come in, you train, you eat properly, you understand about social media, you understand about what you are to society, you understand about your contributions. 2011, I've got 8 years down the line, I thought, you know what, it's time to move on. Motivate was born. My best friend, he was in charge of Ealing. I was in charge of doing work in Hounslow and Richmond. And we said, you know what, we've got to do something. And Motivate was born. And we spent the first year just giving freebies away, just going out, meeting people, going back to what I started with 8 years previously. And we've had some tough times, we self-funded, put our hands in our pockets. And now we're moving to a new phase, which is trying to go abroad with our work. Taff and I have met, obviously, through the networks that we've built for ourselves as well, because our argument is if nobody's going to give you the network, you've got to develop it yourself.
Of course.
So yeah, doing good things.
Good on you. We'll learn more about
Thank
you
you.
Shortly. Sonny, obviously, we've just touched on with Sam regarding the kind of the kids that are going into the academy system and then all of a sudden they're being kicked out. And what happens to these kids? You've been through that system. And what was the fallback plan for you, if any?
Every time I go and talk, this happens. For me, it was different in one way for me because there was quite a lot of attention on me. So it was like, to be honest with you, my situation is a little bit different than a lot of other guys because of the attention. To be quite honest with you, when I come away from football, I actually didn't want to. I got to the stage where I didn't want to play no more because of the attention I got.
Okay.
But I mean, realistically, there's not a lot of things out there for them types of things. I mean,
so how old were you when you actually
the time I got to say 17, 18, I was at Stevenage. I'd done a year or 2 years at Stevenage, and I had a few first team games and things like that. But I'll be honest with you, I mean, I was there, but I wasn't even interested in playing at all. I mean, I went there. After that, I come away, done a couple of reserve games for Barnet, and just to be honest with you, the more and more I got involved, the less and less I wanted to play, which is strange because
so you worked for it.
At one point I was dying to do it, but I think it was just one too many things going on at the same time, and like what Troy was saying about the balance. It's very important, I find, the balance with things in the home and actually on the pitch. For me, that's key. There's a lot to go into, but that is a key thing. There needs to be a lot of balance there. Do you know what I mean?
Okay. And obviously, how has it changed? I don't know how much you're aware of listening to what some of the guys have been saying here. Do you see it improving?
To be honest with you, I'm not there. I mean, it's only the last 6 or 7 weeks I've started to get back involved talking about football. So my actual experience in a minute around football is not as good as Troy's here. So he would know. But I know from the fact what I've been told since I've been talking about football more recently, that in some parts it needs a lot of help, and more that you get it, more it's going to help, sort of thing.
Okay. So you mentioned you kind of lost the love for football while you were actually in the system, but what caused you to kind of lose that affiliation for it?
I think the attention is one thing. I didn't really want the attention, to be honest with you, and I was getting a lot of attention. And when you're at a sort of stage when you're getting that attention, a lot of people come round, and it comes about money and type of thing. You get loads of new friends and agents and all these types of things, and then they quickly go, and you find yourself in a position where you're on your own. And
what impact did that have on you? We've touched on, Troy mentioned parent and parental support.
Yeah.
Looking back, hindsight's a good thing, a great thing. How do you think that impacted not just on you, but obviously as a family as well, your support, that with the infrastructure that you had around you and the immediate family?
Oh, it had a massive impact. Yeah.
What did you
I
feel
mean, to the fact that
in terms of
I
pressure
don't
on
talk
you?
to my dad. I haven't
Really?
spoken to my dad for about 20 years.
Wow.
So it had that much of an impact. Just that's not even a lie. That would started through football.
Wow.
That was the beginning and of the end of sort of my relationship came actually through football, which is a crazy way to think about it, but it's the truth.
Do you think that's partly, again, going back to the fact that parents have certain expectations? Obviously, the hype around you at the time was massive. Your dad had so much more.
I just think people get opportunities and it's all like sort of grab now and we can take now. And instead of thinking like long term and being like a bit more balanced and more settled, I mean, that's the way I see it now, and that's the way I am as a person. Where I try to do my best to do now. But I think when it's a sort of exciting time and a lot of things can be bubbling and ticking, people tend to go, right, let's do this now, and it's all great. But then maybe further down the line, that's what so you've got to be sort of smart in how you're thinking.
Okay. Troy, obviously, and Taff, you guys are involved in the system. Taff, you're seeing firsthand a lot of kids coming through, talented kids. For whatever reason, as the years go by, may just dip, and they're kind of lost through the system. What's happening and what's different to what Sonny went through many years ago to where we are right now? I know Troy mentioned that he's doing a lot of work with the academies and the parents to facilitate that. But Taff, obviously, you're working firsthand with a lot of these kids. How important is the work that Troy and the clubs are doing to not make sure stories like Sonny aren't happening as often as maybe they were?
Yeah, no, I think the whole football development program has moved so far down the line. Clubs are working with stakeholders, so like Kick Out, like PFA, the FA, and things like the discrimination or players needing support with gambling or players needing support with social supports. It's more talked about. And clubs are allowing different stakeholders to come in and contribute to the development of the players. At the same time, within the academy setups, there is a lot more knowledge being shared, and also doors are open for other areas of mainstream education to come in, like schools, like just like more of a growth mindset. And that's ultimately actually helping to build a player, but also build a person, where in the past it was like banging on about building the player and we need to make the next professional footballer, and that was it. But looking at the long run, you want to be able to develop the person and develop the player, because when the player gets to a certain stage, it's the person that actually holds him straight and keeps him going. So building that character, and a lot of academies are building the player and building the person. So while they're doing their football stuff, they're building the person by getting them to do some coaching, do some refereeing, allow different stakeholders to come in and attend those workshops. But at the same time, while the focus is on the players, but the focus is also on the parents. So having lectures and workshops on training evenings where parents can be educated on nutrition, social media, the psychology of the game, how to actually balance the whole football to life situation. And a couple of clubs that I know at the moment are testing programs, such as they're running their academy program in line with the school program. So that way parents get to spend more time with their kids on school holidays, rather than we're in a disconnected world where even on the weekends we're having to take our kids to football. Even at half term, we're having to take the kids to football, so the kids don't actually get to be a young person. Where by doing that program, it's actually helping them to balance their life. So there is a lot more deep nutrition going into development of the players, and I think for that you'll get more well-rounded players coming out and not falling by the wayside. Ultimately, they're belonging to football, but they also realise they belong to their family, to their friends, to their community. So when football doesn't work out, it's not a pitfall. It's more, I still got that, and I can do this, and I've got this, and it's more of a positive transition rather than a vacuum that sucks a lot of players into and they're out of the game.
Disappear from the game, right? So Troy, obviously, like say you're experiencing it firsthand in terms of Sonny's story and like Traff. You're at the top end, one of the stakeholders that are working with the academy clubs. But my question to you is in terms of the gap between grassroots football and academy football. What are you guys and the clubs doing? I know you're doing it, but is there more that can be done to bridge that gap?
Yeah, there's always more that can be done in the game. That's the thing. I mean, one of the reasons why I started my own academies was to bridge that gap. It was to give players that were falling out of the system a net to come, a safe zone to come back into, in terms of, you know, people don't understand the impact of being released. I'm sorry, that's wrong. I think we do understand the impact of a player being released, but that impact has to be managed in certain ways, very similar to Sonny, but because I'm older than him, many more years before him, I got released from an academy, you know, twice in a short space of time. Dissimilar to Sonny, my family and I didn't have any hangers on. So I didn't have anyone to build up my confidence again, to put me back into the system, or to just let me play football the way that I wanted to play football, and then everything else might come naturally. So I started my academies on one, giving, you know, young players, talented players who may not be seen because of the environment that they're in, or where they live, or their social status, the opportunity to perform in a free and open environment. Mix that with players that have coming out of the system who just want to try and build their confidence back up before going back in. And it worked very well for me. And, you know, I put players back in, and you know, the story's a success from there. But clubs can always do more, because, you know, for me, the impact, I spoke about the impact of a young lad whose dreams and the dreams of his parents has always been for him to be a professional footballer, particularly as they get older in the game, you know, 16 or whatever, you're almost there, you're touching it. And to then be released, and sometimes with no fault and no care, no after fault, no care. I know there's a lot of stuff in place, but to then be let out into big wide open world, some players don't have agents, some players, families are not able to attend every game with them, some players are basically there by themselves and don't know where to turn left or right. And it's that worries me. It's still that worries me. There's still a lot going on in the game, and we are in a better place, certainly from my time, and I'm sure from Sonny's time. But there's still that welfare of players that are released, and you know, there's this horrible stat of you know, between 16 to 24 is the age that you see most suicide attempts, or attempts to you know, going into drugs and going into gambling and all that stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
for sure, definitely.
There's still something that we have to do better, and whether that's a tracking system, whether I don't know. I haven't got all the answers here now, but like I said, you know, for every success story that we see, I'm sure there's 9, 10, and you've got a couple of people here that have tried to be part of the system and live the system, and sorry, but it's failed, and I'm saying I've failed, and, you know, tough through injury, you know, didn't, you know, make the grade as such, you know. My story is, I don't know about Sonny, but he's fallen out with his father, you know what I mean, and that's cost him a relationship with his dad. My story is that I fell into depression, and I had no one to turn to or touch, or to even help me out of that. And that was, you know, 3 odd years of 1 minute being called the next best thing, because I was, you know, my partner at centre forward was Teddy Sheringham. You know, Martin Hayes was part of my team, Jimmy Carter, all players that made it in the game. So I was part of that group growing up into the game. Do you know what I mean?
It's the same, the depression side of things, exactly the same.
Yeah, and then after that, I didn't want to go and see the outside world, because my friends all had me up there saying, "Oh, Troy's a professional footballer," and then all
you've
of
got
a
to sort
sudden,
of bring yourself back down to try and mix in with them, when they're like,
and they're like, "But hold on a minute, you big time child. Although you didn't want to be, but you're a big, you know, you're up there." Do you know what I mean?
100%. You sort of you're looked up at as that sort of, even though the most thing I would ever want to be is be looked up above anyone, because that's just not me at all.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't stand it. It makes me cringe the thought of it. But you get looked at like that, and then you're in a position, like you said, and you're not playing for whatever time, you're not at Chelsea anymore, and you're like literally pulling yourself back down to
well, the thing is, you're actually
you've done no different.
Well, the thing is, you're actually pulling on the same shirt that they're pulling on, because you're going back to playing grassroots.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, you're now playing with your friends who are a little bit like, "Oh, hold on a minute, last week he was playing for Crystal Palace. Now, you know, I'm struggling to get a game because my head is like, I shouldn't really be here, but I want to play football. It's the game that I love, but I'm not the same person." And it took me, I don't know, 2-3 years to get out of that before I decided to give back to the game and hopefully not see people in the same situation that I was in. And that's one of the main focuses around my son as well, was we always said that whatever happened, we'd always be there, because my parents never watched me play football.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Never, you know.
Blimey.
And I wouldn't advocate that to anybody, you know,
Okay.
because just knowing that your parent is there, you don't have to watch them all the time, but knowing that your parent is there.
Oh, it's
gives
everything.
you-
It's
it gives
everything
you-
at
Of
the
course
time.
it does.
Everything.
Yeah. Support, especially
It's
when
everything.
at that age.
Yeah.
Sam, obviously, feel free to join the conversation at this stage. But in terms of the parental support, going back to parental support at that age, we've all managed kids teams. We're all still managing kids teams, and you've got the odd parent that is there week in, week out.
Yeah, yeah,
Then
yeah.
you've got kids that are just turning up by themselves, week in, week out.
Yeah.
Well, you
And,
take
you
on
know,
the role of their parent.
You become
don't
their parent.
Yeah,
you know,
you take
and
on
that's
the
what
role.
it is.
Yeah.
And going back to grassroots football, and obviously you're working at that level day in, day out. What is the state? You've heard stories here of the jump between grassroots
No.
and then going to into
Yeah.
academy level football and then being released back into grassroots football.
Yeah.
What state is it in right now?
I think everyone's made really valid points. I think Troy's made a really good point that clubs can always do more. I think it's unfair. We do hear a lot about what they don't do, but they do a lot more than they ever had. I mean, like I said, since 2004, since I've been working, there was a time when football clubs wouldn't even go near a community session. They'd be like, that's just for the community coaches. Get a level 1, level 2, get them out there. Don't bother using our elite coaches. Not worth it. You go to Spain, the usual thing. You know, you'll see A licensed coaches going into schools as part of their remit. That's changing. That is genuinely changing. I've seen it. I've worked in schools. I'm a PE teacher myself, so I know the format that works. The biggest issue that still lies in, though, is that football clubs still, to a certain extent, need to understand more about the communities in which they live and breathe, and they need to have more as they become bigger. You know, you look at the Championship, look at the size of the budgets of those clubs, some of them as well now. They have not a right, but they haven't. There's something that they have to give back, and it may be, you know, I've worked on free ticket offers. I've worked on all these things. To be blunt, it doesn't matter how many tickets and how many this, that, and the other T-shirts you give out. You need to go into those communities. You need to send your first team players, no matter what, how much they're kicking and screaming. You need to educate the players via educating the children, and that's from my perspective. And I feel it when I felt it when I was a younger coach, still young, younger coach. When I saw, you know, back at Brentford, I'd see a first team player walk in, you know, and I'd be like, oh my God. So I would be working harder to show that player, you know, these kids, you know, one of them could be you one day. But it's a two-way street, you know. And then you go over to, say, 11-a-side football and what's going on there, which to me is it's just a crying shame at the moment, because you've got, I am constantly getting phone calls from 16, 17-year-olds like, I don't want to play 11-a-side. I'm getting sworn at. I'm getting this. I'm getting that. They don't play the brand of football I want. So I asked them, what do you mean by that? I'm a centre forward. I'm not much taller than Sam. You know, I've got the ball being lumped at me. I'm going to training. I'm getting, you know, why am I bothering with this? And these like former academy players who'll come to me, former players that I've looked after, and I'm like, I'm practically in tears. 'Cause I'm like, why is this still happening in 2016? To me, it's happening in 2016 because there's still, this goes even beyond football. This goes into a cultural scenario of how much do we as a society care about investing in our infrastructure. I mean, we talk about schools and the budget cuts they've got, but you look at football as a whole and you think to yourself, well, you know, you look at the Chinese model, what they're doing is, you know, they are throwing a lot of money at it, but take the money aside, they're putting in infrastructure, they're putting in places for children to physically play. I go to, you know, Warren Farm in West London, I look at it and I'm just thinking, this is not fit for purpose. You know, the changing rooms are disgusting. I wouldn't want to play there if I was 15, 16 years old. So how can I encourage a 15, 16-year-old who has dreams of becoming the next Harry Kane or Andros Townsend? How can I get him or her, you know, females as well, how can I encourage them when I'm looking at that thinking, when I was a child, there's been not a huge amount of improvement in these certain areas.
Okay.
That's something for football clubs, I feel that they have power and influence, that money does not sometimes need to be used.
Taff, over to you. I think obviously you're involved with Tottenham. You've heard what Sam
Yeah.
just said. I kind of agree with a lot of things he said, because obviously I do a lot of work in the Tower Hamlets area, local clubs there, West Ham. And if I'm honest, the work between West Ham and the local community there is non-existent. How much work that you see firsthand are Tottenham doing within their area, their borough?
Tottenham's got a very, very good programme in terms of working the elite side of it, working with the community. A lot of the academy coaches actually work full time within the foundation setup.
Academy coaches working
Yeah,
in the foundation.
yeah. So
That's
it's
interesting.
because the way the club has modelled it, it's actually a good way of recruiting players. It's a good way of promoting the club, but having a good relationship between the community and the club. I think one of the biggest thing is getting the knowledge out there. How does a corporate entity work with a community entity, and how do you build those relationships? And more that you're getting teachers working with professional football. They're like, okay, we can do a tournament, or we can work with a school, or this can run like this. More and more they're involving youth workers, more and more mentors are coming in. Those bridges are being built. And I think that's where first of all, getting those infrastructures in terms of not physically developing, but a network that brings in the knowledge, but builds a pathway to connect is needed. And once that's established, then going out and doing intensive programs.
I think just to add on to that, what Taf said as well, working within ethnically diverse communities, we're very fortunate. We have literally, you name it, we've got a child from that community, so even in West London. The interesting aspect to that with infrastructure building is also there are some communities who are fearful. They're like, are you going to come in and sell false dreams to our children? And that's an educating scenario as well for the wider community. So Troy's spoken about, you know, and obviously with Sonny's experience, about parental support. It also is cross-cultural parental support and education. And yes, we do, you know, we don't want to mix politics and sport, but unfortunately that does happen. It's a reality that we live in. And we are the foot soldiers going out there to, sometimes we have to take a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of stick. And we have to say, well, you know what? I understand what you've been through. I understand that you've had negative experiences. I understand you may even have connotations of what it's going to be. But it's also working with the clubs. You know, I've done a little bit here and there beyond my work as an independent. You know, the thing I found hard sometimes is when I've tried to get myself involved in programs and I've been told you're not involved in an academy, so you can't be supporting this program. That's insulting. And I could go into lists, but that's not what I'm here for. The point is that I've had that happen several times, and I've thought, so you're now telling me because I've walked away from a football club career, you're almost doing to me what's happened to someone like Sonny as a player. You're now doing it to coaches as well. Because they don't, you know, they don't understand sometimes.
I was going to say, Sam, that's probably where I started my belief of my own academy.
Yeah.
Because at the time I didn't trust the system.
Yeah.
And I thought the system was very, very, and this was a good few years ago, was very negative. And I didn't want to expose my players to that at the time until I felt it was right. And people say, well, who are you? But having had experiences of academy, having known the grassroots system, and how players can develop through that system, you know, I built a structure that I thought was as good as the academy structure without the title. Do you know what I mean? And then that means the transition, if players do then get plucked, particularly getting plucked by people I trust, then it can make it easier for them to go into that and not like look like a fish out of water and then get thrown back 6 weeks later.
Broken, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we've all seen players, we have them here that have been broken by the system. And we all have to take responsibility. I'm not throwing it on the academies. We all have to take a bit of responsibility for that. Do you know what I mean?
Well, like, as you said, it's parental. You know, there's going to be good and bad times, and there's going to be situations where children unfortunately do get let down.
We've got to be so many ways to look at it.
At one time, I was the father of 60 boys. Do you know what I mean? And 20 girls. So that's 80. And you know what I mean? My missus was asking me what's going on. So you know, we have to. You know, we take that, but we do it because one, we love the game, and two, we love those that are under our care. And that has to be recognised sometimes. So I understand the community stuff as well a lot.
It's quite a deep topic, and it's not. Unfortunately, I wish it was more simpler than it is.
Now, what's difficult for me is that the local club where I was Tottenham's one way, Leyton Orient was the other way. Now, Tottenham, you'd think, oh, it's going to be very difficult. Leyton Orient, you'd think, you know what, they'd be jumping at the bits for good young players. They were nowhere to be seen, nowhere to be seen. And like you're saying, Imran, about West Ham, but no disrespect to West Ham and Tottenham, you'd think Leyton Orient, not being funny, but Tottenham looking for young players. When I was growing up, I remember our scout, Jimmy Allibone. He plucked everybody. You're coming Orient, you're coming Orient. Everyone was like, hey, Orient, no way. But he made sure that he attended games, he was there, and you know what? Like you, come to Leyton Orient. And all of a sudden you felt a little bit like you felt for you. I took my team to play Leyton Orient as under 10s. We smashed them. The scout come over and said, you know what, we're going to get a little link with like you because your players, never heard from him again.
That's mad.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think
That's still going on now.
Yeah, of course.
I
I
mean,
mean,
I
Sonny,
think
you
Yeah.
want to say something?
No,
But
just saying, it's interesting that Troy was to say that about how he wanted to build his own team, and he was thinking about, he was in that mindset, because that mindset you had in like 20 years ago, it's like a chain effect, because that's the sort of thing I actually think now.
Yeah.
I actually like the idea of thought of doing something now on my own, and to just to try and help the kids. Like you said, you sort of want to do it your own way in a way, and I find that really interesting. That
Because
he said,
you've got the experiences,
yeah,
haven't
exactly.
you? Yeah.
I can literally know where they're going to go, where they could go. I can, if I can help them. But the way when he just said that, it literally just dropped to me. Just thought, wow, like he thought that after, and that's exactly like the sort of mind thing that I'm thinking about now. Like it's crazy that. But it shows you it's a change sort of thing. How the faults and the patterns that you can fall into from being like up there as a this, that, and the other, and all the way through, then sort of building your way again, sort of thing. So it's interesting.
I think over the years, I think you're one of many stories up and down the country. Because now, if you look, social media is a powerful thing. You look on social media. There's some amazing community football academies as such that are going up and down. And you know, I follow Troy's academy quite closely in terms of the quality and the standard of coaching. Again, there's so many success stories. Surely we've got to be finding more talent than what we are doing. And Taff, obviously, the question comes back to you in terms of your link with Tottenham. How much work are the clubs doing in terms of actually identifying this talent? Because, like I say, the levels of coaching within the community now and communities up and down the country is far superior than what it ever was.
Yeah.
You know.
No, definitely. There is a lot more qualified coaches, but coaches that are working in connection with the clubs. At Tottenham, there's a very, very good relationship between the local clubs around the academy. And they're invited into tournaments. The coaches are invited into workshop days. So there is a good relationship. And when you talk about is there an outcome, there's lots of players that are coming late from grassroots clubs, and those tournaments where coaches are able to identify, oh, we didn't see him, and all of a sudden you've got a 13-year-old that's come out of the blue. And when we look at the talent scouts, talent ID data in terms of young players from under 8 going all the way to the under 15s, it's a lot lower that an 8-year-old go all the way through the system, but a late one that comes in around 12, 13, 14 that actually drives on. But once that initial intake of players in under 8s, 9s, 10s happens, we kind of forget about what's going on in the community. So building those relationships and getting those late bloomers and those untapped talent has to be through working with your local grassroots clubs and youth clubs and schools and so forth.
Okay, we're talking about late bloomers. You touched on the fact that 11-a-side kids are becoming more disillusioned with 11-a-side football and park football. And we've seen over the years, we've seen a massive rise in the small-sided game.
Yeah.
Is that a good thing or is that a bad thing?
Well, for me, I'm actually a
Good
big
thing
fan.
for me.
Yeah?
Small-sided
And everyone's
games,
got their own preference.
Yeah, but
Personally, I like a small-sided games. You've got good feet, and technically, you like tight angles, and then technically, you're into that side of the game.
Yeah,
it's good.
I always put it down to how you manage it.
Yeah.
How you manage what you do to develop your players. So I love the small-sided game. I love the 11-a-side game as well. And you know, I play small-sided. We used to. Sorry, retired career now. Keep trying to get myself back into coaching.
Back in the game.
Small-sided games was part of our training. It was the massive amount of our training. That short and sharp, quick feet, all that kind of stuff. And you then develop that into the bigger picture. I understand players getting disillusioned at 11. Sometimes 11-a-side. Sometimes I look at, and we mentioned coaching badges earlier. Just because you've got a coaching badge doesn't make you a good coach.
Exactly.
And I've seen so many coaches go, yeah, I'm all A for B.
And
then he's throttling rubbish at his players. You know, unfortunately, the last couple of years when I went into, you know, took my team into an under-18 environment because I had to move clubs to get them into that environment, and the foul-mouthed rubbish that I heard from some of the coaches was unbelievable. The players then take that on board because it becomes an accepted culture, and they become that, but in a player. And that's where, you know, it spreads so much in our game, unfortunately. Sorry, I keep dipping from one bit to another, but the five-a-side game is brilliant. Give me a chance to play five-a-side now. Yeah, of course I would. Do you know what I mean? If I had 2 good legs and a lung chest. But you transfer that, like Sonny said, that skill into your 11-a-side environment. You know, Imral, you're one for that. I've seen your teams play. I've seen how they do it, and the two should marry really.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
I
it's
don't
a
think you
balance.
should. Yeah, I
Of
don't
course,
think you
it's
should
gotta be.
like one level or
No,
the
that's
other
right.
better. Do you
That's
know what I mean?
100% right. There's
The
got to
two
be a
should
balance
marry, yeah.
between the.
Yeah.
You've got to be good at both at the end of the
Yeah,
day, haven't you?
yeah.
And, yeah, definitely. He's right.
But it is worrying because there is a lot of young players, good, talented young players
But
that we're losing.
Is that also a fault of the infrastructure and the environment we live in? I think the fact that the weather conditions going back over the winter, again, there was an article I read a couple of weeks ago are we going to finally get a winter break? Do our pitches need a break over the winter period? And would that have an impact on the number of people playing 11-a-side
Not
football?
really. I don't think so. I mean, one winter, my last winter, we played one game from October to February. So what you're going to have is a winter break. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then some people say, well, it should be summer football. And then what if that summer, that particular
It rains.
summer,
It rains.
it either rains or we have one of them summers, you know, the one we get every 35 years, where it's absolutely scorching.
hot,
Yeah.
yeah.
And then they're going to say, oh, you're
Too
playing
hot.
your kids. Do you know what I mean?
Health and safety.
Yeah,
So-
it's true. You can't change the weather. There's not really much you can do about it.
And
is
we're
there?
in England, so let's get used to it.
Yeah.
But we're in that environment where, yeah, we could take a winter break. I don't think at grassroots level, but we could take a winter break. We picked 2 weeks in between December. They're the best 2 weeks that we've had, and around that is the worst period.
I think also with that, it's you look at that period between November, December, January, February. You play on a national turf.
Yeah.
You want to play.
Yeah, of course. That was going to be
It's
my
light,
next
but
point.
it's dark by 3:30, 4 o'clock.
But do you know what, for me, Taff, and we're going back to Sammy said about facilities, we don't look after our facilities
No,
well
we don't.
enough.
No,
So
that's
if we
horrifically.
looked after our facilities, we wouldn't have to worry about AstroTurfs because you know yourself, some council pitches, the geezer walks out and he goes, yeah, no, that's not playable. And you think to yourself, hold on a minute, there's nothing wrong with it. What we used to do, we used to be the groundsman on our
Yeah.
pitch. We used to sweep it, we used to playable, you went, all right, you've done that, no worries.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? But they're taking the money, I'm not blaming the councils, they're taking the money away from the councils, they're taking away, you know, all their tools and whatever else. So the geezer thinks, I ain't sweeping that. Nah, I ain't playing in that. Do you know what I mean? And you lose a week. Then you find out that, hold on, there was a game played on it after you.
Yeah.
So it's difficult, and I understand the AstroTurf stuff, and yeah, for training, etc. But if we looked after, and I'm talking up and down the country, if we looked after our facilities and made them better, made them fit for purpose, because too many facilities are not fit for purpose, I don't think we'll be crying about a winter break.
No.
So let's plough some money in. Well, we keep talking about it. Let's put some money to make them fit for purpose and allow our young people to develop their, and I say young people because I'm talking boys and girls, develop the football the way that we know how. You know, because there's good stuff going on up and down the country, but like you say, at one stage you might look out the window and go, you know, we're never going to play today, don't you? You know what I mean? And then what do you do? If you don't play, you don't train. Because if you can't play on it, you can't train on it. I used to just take mine to a local park. Train at a local park. You know what? I don't want to say the word about excrement that's on the pitch and all that stuff, but we train. Train. Do you know what I mean? And the boys wanted to train because they enjoyed it, they liked it. Whether it was freezing, whether it was pouring, whether it was bright sunshine, they just wanted to train. And it's about, you know, there's so much that you can do to make it right. I see you do it, I see you do it. And then all of a sudden you see another 10 though that are not doing it right, and that's the highlighted story, and that's what sets you back. You know, we got a wonderful opportunity now because, you know, people knock us that we've got no talent, we've got no this, we've got no young player. We've got young players, we've got talent, we've got good coaches, we haven't got facilities, and we don't plough enough money in there. So hold on, if we've got 3 out of the 5, why don't we do the other 2 to make the whole, you know what I mean, the whole product work? Do you know what I mean?
But again, why are clubs going abroad to find this talent? Why are they
Because
not?
it's easy.
It's like going to the supermarket, and you've got the agent network and the scouting networks. It's just so simple. It's so much easier. And
Because they're always perceived as being better than the English talent as well.
I mean, that's happened since the year dot, unfortunately. I mean, even when I was growing up as a kid, I mean, it was happening then. I mean, Sonny probably saw it to a certain extent when the 2 weeks that you spent abroad, maybe when you were looking at other players and what the culture and backgrounds were and what they would, I don't know if they were talking about their futures. I don't know if you ever heard conversations. I've been abroad with and I've spoken to players and they're all talking about, I'm coming to England. That's it. That's the education. I'm going to find my way into Europe. If I can get to England,
because
I've
it's
made
seen
it.
as the money pot, isn't it? It's seen as the
the golden
opportunity
nugget.
to play in the Premier League and to earn millions and millions of pounds without really focusing on the quality of what you do.
So, Sonny, when you were abroad and you were at Ajax, how many foreign kids did you see there, apart from yourself, obviously?
Well, I mean, I'm the only one.
The
I
only
think
one?
I've ever
Yeah.
still ever been the only one to do that. To be honest with you,
I think we're the reverse of that.
Yeah, exactly.
How many English players actually
Are
are
actually
in
going
our
on.
Exactly.
It's the same thing.
Therein lies the
And I
argument.
think sometimes we
Yeah, that's
it's a
exactly
cultural
right.
thing as well. Like you watch Champions League, and it's deep within our psychology. We'll be like, we're going into Europe. No, we're part of
Yeah.
Europe.
We are in
Yeah.
well,
It's like we are a separate entity. We're going into Europe. No, you're part of Europe. So go and try and.
but I think that's a valid point. How many British players are willing to go abroad and actually sample an educational lifestyle
But
on a
again,
footballing
does
level?
that come back to a cultural and more of I guess, a problem within the system that maybe the player exchange within clubs?
I mean,
isn't
Chelsea.
happening?
To be fair, Chelsea at a youth level are doing it with what I mean, but whether the rights and wrongs.
I'm not advocating the way Chelsea.
Yeah, I
do
was
it
going to
with
say,
30,
but you still have players that
3
are.
players out on
This
loan.
is true, but taking that sort of very valid argument out, you're still seeing players
But
going
then most of
abroad.
those players
Well,
are
they-
foreign anyway.
Yeah, this is
Do you know
true.
what I mean? So
This
most
is
of
true.
they've got 33 players out on loan or 34, but if you look at them, they're
Yeah,
Dutch,
then there are
they're
very few
Serbian,
English
they're
players.
Italian,
Yeah.
they're not even English players.
Yeah.
So it's an English club exporting foreign players to give them the benefit of European football, bring them back, and then don't play them.
Yeah.
It's in a way we're victims of our own success. You look at how big the Premier League is. You look at how big.
I'd say what success. That's what I would say.
Depending on how you define it.
Yeah.
But the Premier League's gone so big now. You're not getting your mediocres from other countries. Now that could be a big question point. Like you're getting the top players from each country coming to the UK.
Are you really getting the top players from the? Because you're not. I'd beg to differ.
Yeah, I beg to differ.
I'd beg
as
to
well.
differ on that.
I'm looking at like
They're coming here, they're becoming big, and they're leaving.
I think a lot of
That's
people
the
in
way
their
I see
mind,
it.
to be honest with you, a lot of people got it in their mind that they think, oh, abroad is going to be so much better.
But you
That's
know,
the sort of thing.
No,
Oh,
if you
he's at
look at-
Ajax. Oh my God, he's at Ajax. He must be done this. He must have done that.
I think you're
I was
looking
from
at more
Enfield. Yeah, I was at Ajax for a while, but I'm from Enfield at the end of the day. Like, but some people
you know as well
it's in the mind.
about our talent. Right, so I'm from Enfield. I love that. Our talent is. You take Marcus Rashford. Let's take Marcus Rashford an instant. That wasn't by design.
No.
What's it was?
That
That
by
wasn't by,
default.
that was by
Yeah,
default.
yeah, yeah.
Didn't have a choice.
But all of a sudden, Marcus Rashford can label already.
The next big
scored
thing.
against Arsenal. Yeah, I've done it against Man City. Do you know what I
Scored at
mean?
Wembley.
I've scored at Wembley. I've Villa. You know, I don't mean that. But let's be serious. If those Man United forwards were fit,
He wouldn't have a
He wouldn't
chance.
we wouldn't be talking about Marcus Rashford.
But
That's not right.
But this is coming back to my point of maybe you're looking on the youth side of it. You're getting the best of the best at the top level.
Mm-hmm.
So if the cream of the crop is at the top, how are the talent going to get through? It's not. So there's got to be some sort of cap system where it allows players to come through. So you look at all the other nations, because you take
Spain, for example. If
you
you
take-
look at the average Spanish club in the top 6, if you take away the Barcelona and the Real Madrid, the rest of them, how many Spanish-born kids are playing in them
But
clubs?
I would add that's financial reasons as well, because
And-
the Premier League is completely different to any other league on the planet in that respect, where the TV money alone is allowing quote unquote lower league sides to go and get foreign talent. You wouldn't get a Levante or a Granada going out and spending 50 grand a week on a player.
Hold on a minute. Do you have to?
No, but I wouldn't. I don't think they should.
look
But
at-
I'm
look at-
saying, yeah.
Look at the model of Leicester City at the moment.
Well, therein lies
now
the
everyone
argument.
is
I'm saying.
going. Hold on a minute.
Yeah.
It can be
Yeah.
done.
Leicester, I bought Kante
Yeah.
for nothing.
Yeah.
By the way,
Mahrez.
he's the best midfield player in the league.
Yeah.
I don't care who they're talking about. They bought Mahrez for nothing,
Nothing.
from
Jamie Vardy.
League 2. They bought Vardy from Backyard.
And they were criticised at the time for spending $1 million on him.
And yeah, you're right. And the geezer's playing. You know the defunct 4-4-2.
Yeah.
The system that we can't
That
use no
is
more because
dead.
it won't win you anything.
Yeah.
I was critical of Ranieri coming back, I must admit. But wow, he's blown everyone apart. Work rate, effort, and you know what? Good old coaching. Good old
Yeah,
coaching.
that's it.
Coach
I
the
think that's
players
good.
to a system, to a manner, to a way.
Yeah.
You know what? Forget that you can't play 4-4-2. Play
a team ethic.
4-4-2. We've got Kante, who basically runs everywhere anyway. So you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You've got a man that can score goals. You've got a man with talent and ability. And you know what? Around it, you look at Wes Morgan and Hoof.
Yeah.
Seriously, I wouldn't pick
Experienced
them.
players.
I wouldn't pick them in my under 18s.
No.
But yet you've got 2 players there now. Do you know what? They buck everything, they tackle everything, and they look like they've been playing together forever.
But is that going back to it again? Have Leicester City in a way gone back to the 70s and the 80s? They're playing more as a team, and that the unity, and it's the old school playing for the shirt, playing for the badge.
Their biggest
Does that need
challenge,
to come back?
Their biggest challenge will be next season.
Yeah,
Can he
it's the
continue it
second
next
season syndrome.
Yeah.
What other players going to be there for a start?
Well, I would hope
You
so.
never know.
They've got
Time
Champions
will
League.
tell.
They've got Champions League. They're
But
playing Barca and all them kind of
And
all
they'll
of a
have
sudden
Champions
now
League money.
people want to talk
Yeah, they
about
wanna be
Leicester.
there now
Do you know
or
what I mean?
something,
yeah.
So
They're
why not,
the team
why
to
not
beat.
try and beat them as being Leicester City? Do you know what I mean?
It'll be
I
an
would hope
interest-
they
it'll be
would stay.
interesting.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I really hope they would.
So, all right then, Taff, Troy, the question to all four of you: how do you change that? Can you change it? Is it possible? Is it ever going to change?
I think.
Well, in
Sorry,
terms
I'll
of
let
sorry,
In terms of bringing through our own, giving these kids, Manchester United, like I say, it's just through default that Rashford came.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's not at Tottenham.
But
It's not at Tottenham.
that's
No.
what I'm saying about every team you look at in the Premier League. It makes up pretty much the top 10, top 15 of another national team. They're the top players. So you look at Chelsea, every one of them play for their national team. You look at Arsenal, every one of them play for their national team. So how are England boys going to get through that system when you're getting the best of the best at the first team setup? And when you're getting homegrown, that is set at 16, and you keep on bringing in players from abroad, you're not actually getting homegrown. They're not classified like your Cesc Fabregas is not homegrown. So homegrown needs to change, and that way, when you fill that list in Premier League, you've got to have a certain amount of homegrown players. They got to be homegrown, and homegrown should be, I reckon, primary school.
But
And
I
then
watched the FA Youth Cup last night. See Chelsea.
Yeah,
I went there, and
It's an
like you said
international
about
who's who.
homegrown. Well, some people were telling me they was homegrown them players. I just can't. I don't
That's
know.
just
I'm not-
legalities though, as opposed to
Yeah.
what has actually happened,
and-
isn't it?
and,
Well,
and, and
they,
they're able to fill that,
Mm.
and that allows them to actually have a stack of foreign players.
But then the game next season, more money in the game.
Yep.
Yeah.
But that's-
And what I'm saying is the pressure now that these managers are under. You know, managers last how long now?
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now you think, oh, do I trust the Sonny Pipe? Because you know what? I've got 12 games to make it right, or else I know I'm going to
Yeah.
get the boot. So I'm not going to trust a young lad
Yeah.
who might give me 2 good games and then be shocking
And
for
needs
10,
another year.
and probably is not developed enough. I'm going to go with, because I signed him for 25 mil, I'm going
He's
to go
gotta
with
go
him.
in.
Not being funny, look at Hazard this season.
Yeah.
Hazard. He's been shocking. So he turned up last Saturday. Do you know what I mean? He's been shocking. As well as him, all the other players at Chelsea that have not performed for whatever reason, the players at Man City.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, Kevin De Bruyne comes back, they look like a team again. But they've spent money on top players and they haven't been performing. But hold on, they're not getting shafted. Man City, you watched Man City last night.
yeah.
Where's those young players coming through to play for them then? They won't be given, because the manager doesn't trust, or from above, you know what?
They're under the cosh.
Yeah, they're under the cosh.
So why spend all that money on academies? Why spend?
because
for
they-
example,
Because
Man
it seems to
City?
be doing
I was
the
going
right
to say
Yeah,
some
yeah.
some
Yeah.
it's to stamp a few boxes and keep the Premier League happy and to keep
That's
the
right.
funders happy.
Spurs' model
Sell shirts.
Yeah, Spurs' model has been great, and Spurs' model just hasn't happened overnight.
No.
You know, John McDermott and the people behind the scenes that don't get the credit for all those players, young players playing in that first team, the players that have been there through the system. That hasn't come from, no disrespect to Pochettino, he's brought them on a level.
Yeah.
That has come from the philosophy that John McDermott brought into that football club 10 years ago, that he wanted change, that he wanted to develop young players. That's why Harry Kane came through. That's why Andros Townsend came through. That's why Ryan Mason came through, Danny Rose, because they had a philosophy and they were going to stick with it. Before then, Spurs youngsters were shocking.
Yeah.
Ledley King. Who else we got? Oh, I don't know. Glenn, you know what I mean? You could name them. And I go into academies now and ask the players, how many products have you got that come through your system? And they don't go, wow, they go, yeah, oh, him, yeah, we sold it. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
oh, yeah. Do you know what I mean? And that's the pressure that the game is putting on the game.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And it's
It's like a self-defeat.
But that philosophy has to be carried on from top
key-
down.
The
So
key
big-
that both gents put in is it's the philosophy, which was the whole reason why I got into why I got into coaching. How many times have I gone to seen a coach? I'm UEFA A, I'm pro license. Okay, show me what you got. And he's just banging out the worst kind of. I mean, if you want to go down to it, and Troy, I know, is a former
Yeah.
PE teacher, it's safeguarding. I wouldn't let my dog go with that person for a walk, let alone you know. And then the parents feed off that because you see them on the corners, you know, on the corners, on the side of the game, screaming at their kids as well, because it's the lack of philosophy. That's also another reason why we have so many private operators in this country versus other countries, because so many people are walking away or saying, you know what, I'm going to do it my way, because it literally is my way or the highway, because we're guardians of the game. Manchester United, what's their philosophy now? I couldn't tell you what it is. Genuinely. And then I grew up thinking, my God.
The thing is, they were being criticised. And
that's
just before they were being criticised for not producing young players,
and then
Marcus Rashford's come through, and everyone's saying, "Oh, why are they criticised?" But hold on, they deservedly were criticised because Rashford, not his ability,
no one knew who he was.
But he's an accident because no one knew who he was. It was just about he wasn't even playing under 21 games.
Wow.
And all of a sudden, we've got no one else to pick. Let's bring the young lad in, and the boy scores goals.
And then he needs to be in the England squad for the Euros. It's just laughable, really. It's quite upsetting, actually, as a football coach when you watch that. And I've got kids who come to me in the primary schools I go into now, like Marcus Rashford, I want him to be playing for England. And I have to go into It's good for me, because I got an opportunity to educate young people, say, well, there's a time and a place and an opportunity. But it's just so scary.
But they won't, no disrespect, and I used to say the same thing, they won't value that. They will value it, but they won't value it
up to a point,
immediately.
because I'm fighting against a bigger animal.
Because, hold on,
because
see Marcus Rashford score again. So why wouldn't I want? But my teacher's telling me that I can't.
But therein lies the challenge, and that's why people like myself keep going, because we know that we're fighting against a bigger. It's not a foe, because we're all fighting for the same outcome, but it can feel like that at times.
The thing is, as well, this is the greatest game in the world. And without doubt, I'd argue with anyone that plays anything that's remotely close to it. And I know you're not happy with the game. So
no, I'm all right now.
This is the greatest game in the world, with some of the biggest rewards and some of the, the exposure is unbelievable.
Yeah.
But it can let people down as well.
Yeah.
And it's that happy balance. Somewhere we've heard it. Do you know what I mean? And we've had the experience. It's that happy balance of looking after everyone that's nurtured and involved in the game. Our young talent, yes. The quality of our coaching. I've been into some environments where I look in there and I feel a sense of this club is doing bits, because you can feel it when you walk in somewhere. Do you know what I mean? Club's doing bits. I ain't got a problem with it. I'm not name clubs, but Tottenham's one of them. But you know what I mean? This club is doing bits, and and you can also walk into an environment and think, flipping hell, I wouldn't like to be here. As a young
Moving on swiftly.
Anyway, Sonny, obviously you've been out of the game for a while. You mentioned that over the last 6 weeks you've kind of found your love. You've got the mojo back for the sport, the love for the game. You said it's one of the, it is the biggest sport in the world.
Yeah, of course,
it's number one in everyone's heart. But I'm guessing it's the first time in a while you've had the opportunity to listen to a few different opinions and thoughts. What are you going to be taking away from what you've heard today and what you've been hearing over the last 6 weeks?
It's quite interesting what these two are saying, because that's the sort of things they're talking about, and all three of them, sorry, is the sort of things I'm actually learning about, and I've got a lot of people coming to me asking me questions about. So I'm sort of learning from you guys, to be honest with you. But it's an interesting road, because as I said, 6 weeks ago I started coming out telling my story about what happened with me, this football, this, that, and the other. So what I've learned is I think they're trying a lot more, the clubs now, it seems to be anyway, but it's always room for improvement. And like I said earlier, the main thing for me is to get it across that it's not just the football, it's the balance of your family, it's about all the areas that you're living in, all that sort of community side of it is really the key. And I'm learning now more than ever that is true.
Okay. And as it gives, I know you've touched on it, but it's something that you feel you want to give back now to. Yeah,
no, for sure. Why not? I mean, I'm in a position now where I can get to do these types of things, so why not? I mean, I'm not going to lose anything out of it. If I can help someone help my story and help kids, why not? Why not?
All right. Troy, one final message from yourself in terms of how you see the game developing over the coming years, and what you think that the main stakeholders can give back to grassroots.
Well, that's probably just that. I think we have to recognise that that's where players are born. That the players are born. There isn't a player that steps straight from his back garden into the academy system. So players are born and develop through nurturing their talents and their skills through grassroots football. They're selected for a reason. Someone picked Sonny up because they identified something in him that they thought that is a talent. Ajax didn't just come over and pick a big crane up and say, look, this is the lad, let's utilise him for a little while. They picked him because there's a talent and there's ability there that they think that they can enhance. And I think sometimes with clubs that we do that, but then we're very dismissive of it as well. You come in with an ability, and when they're dismissive, young players are like, well, that means I'm no good. And then that confidence and that self-esteem, you know, there's like you say, there's more to it. Confidence. So you take confidence out of a player, self-esteem, you don't recognise who they are, you know, all of a sudden they come back to you and they're nothing like what they went away with. And I think football in general as a whole, yeah, let's produce young players, let's put people in prominent positions that can help young players through, but let's also provide that safety net where they can enjoy the game. I don't want to hear stories, I don't want to play football, I don't like it, I don't, leave me alone. Do you know what I mean? I don't want to hear stories like that because that's depressing. Do you know what I mean? So football has an obligation to help everybody that plays its game. Whether football feel it can or not, with the money that's been out there, I think football can. And so I'll be doing my best to continuing to help the development of young people as much as I can that play this game. And obviously with, you know, being here tonight, just learning from everybody and listening to some of the challenges that everybody still has and experiences that they've had, is you can utilise that. I'll use a bit of his story now in one of my talks. I'm at another club next week. Why not? Because it's an actual experience.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, so as long as you're all right with me.
No, if someone can learn from it, why not?
And that's what it's about.
Yeah, 100%. That's great.
Brilliant. Taff, obviously a lot of...
Done it again.
He's done it again. This is finished.
This is under pressure.
Look at a few quid he was going to try underneath there.
Taff, obviously, as a man who's working at one of the better clubs, should we say, and you've been involved in coaching now for a long time. For any budding coaches out there and those people like myself who are working in the communities, what advice have you got for them?
I think earlier on when Samir was talking about having these different level coaches and thinking, oh, I'm an A licensed coach, I'm a B licensed coach, I must be better. To me, it's more about, it's not about your level of coaching, or it's not about your coaching level, but your level of coaching. So taking into account, you know, you might have a level 1, but he might have an A license. But the way you coach in terms of developing a player doesn't mean that because he's got an A license is any better. And I think more we actually respect the wider community, like people that are working in grassroots, the teachers, the youth workers, the mentors, and say, you know what, you're just as important, and you, the peripheral detail that you bring to the table is just as important. And then you're getting a real circle of people working together. A kid spending 2 hours at an academy, it's not enough. And what goes on at home and what goes on with the teacher at school, what goes on when he goes out with his friends or hanging around the youth club, we need to involve everyone. So everyone has a part to play. So whether you're a grassroots coach, whether you're doing PE sessions in a school, whether you're running a youth club session, you're just as invaluable to that person. Because a kid might have a bad session or a bad game. And you know what? He might not want to talk to the coach because the coach is judging him on how his performance is. He might want to go and speak to a youth worker. You know what? I didn't have a good game. And he'll see it completely without seeing the game, without judging the player. Okay, so tell me about it. And give him a clear perspective, or a perspective that isn't judgmental and lets him reflect on it on a positive notion. And this is why we've got to value everyone that's involved. So anyone working at all levels, you're just as important to the system as someone running the first team, to someone who's making the tea, to someone who's cutting the grass. It's everyone has to play their part.
Good stuff. Samir, obviously you listened to what the guys here have had to say about their experiences in football. You've got your own personal opinions, but what you can be taken away from this chat we've had here today?
I think it's just that every point is valid. It's as simple as that. And anyone who loves the game is a guardian of the game. It's that simple. Whether you enjoy watching it and are coming back to it as Sonny, or whether you're, you know, Troy, who's got more experience than I've had hot dinners, you know, or, you know, Taff, who I know personally as well, and we just talk about football, we talk about our own career goals, or we talk about, you know, elements of the game that we are interested in developing. It's guardian-orientated activity. We give a damn. If you care, that makes you an important focal point towards where we're trying to take it. And, you know, I always use the argument, my dad used to tell me, good news doesn't sell newspapers. You know, if tomorrow if tomorrow it was on the front page that actually life's not that bad and football's not that in that bad a shape, you know, there are definitely a lot of things that need to change. But when has that ever not been the case? The difference is there are more voices now than ever before. When I entered the industry, I don't even like calling it that, but yeah, for wanting of a better word, I found it nigh on impossible for people to listen to me. So I did what any smart person would do. And I don't think I'm particularly super intelligent. I grafted. I just grafted. I grafted and I got people.
He's agreeing with you on the car.
It's all good. It's all good. That's why I wear glasses. I just worked hard, you know, and I took a lot of crap. I was judged for not being the footballer, coming in and working with coaches who were former footballers. What does he know? He's never played. Well, I have, just not to your level. My badge, I've got a level 2 badge, and I've worked with UEFA A pro licensed coaches. That doesn't make me better or worse, but it just makes me somebody who's on my own personal journey. And I remind the people that I'm mentoring in my own time that, you know what, I don't give a damn if you've got a UEFA coaching badge or not. If you are willing to give me 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a week, you are more important, if anything, because it is now my duty to get you to places that I still haven't reached yet. And I've got people who've gone past me in the football industry, and I'm so proud of them for that reason. They're working in football. I've had to do other things to keep my bills paid. But it's all good, because what I can do, I continue to do. And everyone here is going to do that, and everyone watching it is hopefully going to do that. It can be a little bit of a, you know, life's rosy attitude, but then at the end of the day, we love this game, so why criticize it 24/7? Be positive and move forward.
Brilliant. All right, guys. Well, listen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure having you guys on the show. I learned plenty. I'm sure the guys and the viewers who are watching it will be more than happy with what they've seen and what they've heard. So that's it, guys. Wrap the show up. You've been watching the Football Weekly. I've been Imran Ghazi. Till next time, take care.